We are super excited to welcome to Just Dance professional dancer and choreographer Jessica Castro. She has shared the stage with so many amazing artists like Janet Jackson, Beyoncé, Jennifer Lopez, Ricky Martin, and the list goes on and on. Not to mention choreographing for peeps like the Jonas Brothers, Doja Cat, and Alicia Keys. Jessica, welcome to Just Dance.
Thank you for having me.
We are super excited to have you on the show, and I always let T start. T, what is your first question?
Oh, it's the same question I always ask. And I do this for the reason of, I think some people look at whether they're dancers or actors or choreographers, whatever the case is, and they see them kind of in their glory and think that they just got there overnight. So I'm always really curious what everyone's journey is and was, and like what sparked that interest for you. Some people, like myself, were thrown into a studio at 2, probably just to get out of my mother's hair. And others start later in life. So tell us your journey and how you got from kind of point A to today.
Well, the crazy story is that my father, who is a musician and a singer, at a very young age, he was the one that kind of was like, put her in ballet, piano, voice. And I was so shy as a child. Yes, like I was that kid that would sit in the corner and wouldn't talk to anyone unless they would talk to me. So he put me in ballet. I think I was like 5 and I was scared of the teacher and I ran out of the class. Like first ballet class, I ran out of the class, never went back. He put me in piano lessons, literally stood by the piano, didn't play, like never went back. He put me in vocal lessons, wouldn't open my mouth, never went back. Like, and look at what I'm like.
Yeah, and if anyone who doesn't know you, like that is not the same person you grew into. Thank goodness, because you are just full of vitality and life and energy. No one would ever believe that you could actually not open your mouth.
No, seriously, it's like, you know what I have to say, obviously, as I got older, but it was really this industry that forced me to find my voice.
Hmm.
Truly, like this industry really just forced me to find my voice and my power, something I didn't know I had, something that I was very afraid of. But yeah, so that's my story, growing at my younger self. And then growing up, like I always danced, and it was something that, I always say, when you're a dancer, even though you're not calling yourself a dancer, you kind of know you are. Like when you hear music, there's this connection with it. Growing up watching music videos, I could mimic what I saw in front of me. I really didn't understand technically what I was doing, but I could mimic it.
Right.
And so I was in like the talent shows in my middle school and high school.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I was the one that came up with the choreography, which I didn't even know it was called
Right.
choreography back then. It was just like, follow me, do what I do.
Exactly. Yes.
Exactly.
I'll make it up. Like that's just what we called it.
No, yeah, and then actually when I was 15, no lies, uh 17, a friend of mine, Hillary, told me about this dance studio, Rhythm Nation. It was called Rhythm Nation.
What?
Yes, it was a dance studio in Connecticut called Rhythm Nation.
Okay.
Yes, and so she was like, "Yeah, why don't you come take class with me? It's like this MTV type dancing." Meanwhile, I had never taken a class before. I had never, so I went in and I started taking classes, but this was more like what I called back then like video type dancing. So I
Okay.
still didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know about counting. I didn't know about phrasing. I I was just kind of thrown into this classroom, and that was kind of like the beginning of my dance journey.
Okay.
Which, yes. And then after high school, because the thing is, in high school and in college, I ran competitive track and field.
Right. Okay.
Like that's what I thought I was gonna like continue doing.
Got it.
And then after the first year of college, I went up to my coach and I told him I was moving to New York.
Okay.
And yeah, and he was like, "What?" I was like, "I'm moving to New York." I just, you know what it was? I didn't know what New York had for me. There was something in my spirit that said, "You need to be in New York."
Right. Was
I
that because
know.
of you wanting to pursue dance, or you just felt
No. I swear to you, Tina, like I just knew that I needed to leave Connecticut,
okay?
and I knew New York is where I needed to be. Growing up, I had family in New York, so we spent a lot of time in New York, and New York always felt like home. And
Right.
so I knew that if I was going to move to New York and my mom was going to be okay with it, I had to go to school.
Right.
So I applied to FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology, and I looked at the majors and I was like, "Oh, this looks interesting." And that's how I picked my major. And I figured, I scrolled, I was like, oh, textile development and marketing. Cool, that sounds good. So that's how I picked my major. I ended up going to FIT. And while I was there, I started working at Banana Republic. And at the time, a good friend who we became really close friends, her friend Lisa, her name is Lisa. She was working at Banana Republic with me, but she was also dancing for Dance Theater of Harlem.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're so
And
good.
so randomly, I was like, again, this thing, I was like, I asked her, I said, "Do you know where I could take like a dance class?"
Mhm.
And she was like, "Yeah, you should go to Broadway Dance Center." And this is when Broadway Dance Center was still on Broadway.
Okay.
And I'm still on Broadway, where there was no like internet, where you had to actually go to the studio, pick up like the schedule, like the paper schedule.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go to the bulletin board, look up all of the teachers and look at their resume. Like this was that time,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So then I went and I started taking all these beginner classes, like beginner jazz, beginner ballet, beginner hip hop, like just all these beginner classes. And I remember one day, right? There were two moments that are attached to like BDC. I remember I started taking these open classes, and I remember looking into, before going into class, I remember this one beautiful teacher, and her name is Cecilia Marta. And she taught like a contemporary fusion type class. And I
Okay.
remember I was looking through the window and I saw them doing across the floors, right?
Right.
I saw them doing across the floors. I know, which people don't do anymore, but I saw them doing across the floors. You still do. You said, I still do them too. I
Good.
still do them too.
Good.
But I remember I watched them dancing across the floor, and they were, I could feel the joy.
Mm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
remember thinking, I could feel the joy and the freedom.
Okay.
And I remember thinking, that's what I want to feel. Again, I was so new that I was like still trying to learn and struggling. And that
Right.
feeling right there was like the goal, to
Oh,
to feel that, to
right.
feel that joy and that freedom, and not feel the struggle
Right.
physically. And so I remember that moment very clearly. And I also remember the moment where my friend Lisa uh, was just coming out of her ballet class, and I was in a ballet class, and she spotted me. And which I didn't know, she waited for me after class, and I was like, "Oh my God, Lisa." And she was like, "Jess," she was like, "You have such beautiful natural lines." I didn't understand what she meant by that at the time, and now I do.
What are my lines?
Not these lines, not these lines. And she was like, "You should think about auditioning for Alvin Ailey's summer intensive." And I looked at her and said, "Girl, what?" was like, no. She's like, I promise, just audition. They'll put you in the level that you need to be in. So after much convincing, I auditioned and I got in.
Wow.
I auditioned, I got in. Obviously, I was in all the lower levels. But that summer, right? That summer, after going through the intensive, I fell in love with dance. Like
Right.
dance prior to that was just something that I knew I could do. I enjoyed doing it. It wasn't necessarily something I was like, I want to be a dancer. I want to be in this industry. It was just something that I kind of just wanted to get into.
Right.
It was something that I loved doing. But then after that summer, it solidified what I wanted to do and pursue.
Interesting.
And yeah, and so that summer was a summer that I was like, this is what I'm gonna do.
Do you think it was because of like not just what was already in you naturally, but also being around like all the other people that were pursuing stuff, and it's like there's something about performing with high level performers. It just kind of encourages you, but it also goes, wow, like I want to be. It kind of sets your bars even higher than you imagined on your own, right? Where you're like, oh, I want to. What is that move? I want to learn how to do that, and knowing that, especially like how amazing that you got to start at Ailey at like such. I didn't even know they had levels, right? I only know group, and I just thought if you can't do that, you're not an Ailey. Like I didn't know they had all these different levels, and my God, like I still don't think my parents would have ever sent me to New York, being on an LA girl, but like it is good to know, like wow, okay, they didn't all just kind of plop out of the sky at that level, like they trained. Because I'm like, where do they get? Like, how do they? I mean, the Ailey dancers to me are just like
phenomenal.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think for me, what it was that summer wasn't easy. I think for me, it just kind of the idea of, I don't even know how to put it in words. It was because it was hard. I cried.
Oh yeah.
But it was almost, because you have to understand, I was in class with girls that had been dancing since they were like 5, 6, 10. And to me, everything was so foreign. The vocabulary was so foreign. Again, that summer, as I learned, I was still mimicking.
Right.
Now I could attach it to a very specific vocabulary. But I think what that summer for me was, oh, I can actually do this.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like I was always an athlete, and it was always like, oh, I can actually do this. And yes, being around other dancers that are pursuing, because at the time I didn't even, honestly, Tina, like I didn't know you can make money doing this. I didn't know you can make money. For me, it was just like, I wanted to do this. I don't know what it is inside of me that's telling me to do this, but this is what I want to do. And this is what feels right, even though I'm leaving every day crying.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. It's like yeah.
Yeah, like every day was a struggle, every day, but it was such a beautiful struggle. And every day I saw myself improving. And so from there, at the time, Ailey had an independent study program. And then during the year, I was going to FIT, and I was doing this independent study program where I could kind of pick and choose what I wanted to do. And then finally, I was like, this is what I want to do full time. And I started doing their certificate program, which was a full-time program before they merged with Fordham to have like this BFA program that they have now. And so that was like the beginning of it. I told my mom, she thought I was crazy. Because she was like, her whole thing was like, how are you gonna make money? You're too old. You're 19. You were supposed to start when you were younger. We also didn't have examples in our family of artists.
Right.
You have to remember, like my dad was an artist. He was a singer. He was in a salsa band growing up, but he also worked in a factory. So artistry to me was always connected with just pure love.
Right. And
not this idea of making money.
right.